RN, and this is my office here, my Be the Light office at Sound and Light Healing Arts. And I'm here in Port Townsend, Washington today. And guess what came across my desk through the wonderful Alignable networking is this lovely being who is championing what I feel is the last puzzle piece to be addressed, revibrated, reattuned, to make it flow into the new paradigm. So I welcome Donalee Gastreich to our interview today.
Thank you so much, Jan. And I love how you added that it's that piece of the puzzle. The planet is evolving. We are evolving as a species. And even if we're not fully aware of it, it's happening.
Yes, we are. And we're each bringing a different initiative. And this is amazing. I saw her book, Spirituality in Business. In business. And I said, what a lovely package. Well, you look like you're heaven sent. And this is obviously heaven sent messages. And when we did our pre-interview, you mentioned that you've worked with Course in Miracles, which of course helps us have our feet in both worlds. But I would like for you to introduce yourself. First, where do you live? And what sorts of things are you interested in? But then people always want to know, what was the bridge that took you from living your old paradigm life? What was the kicker? Often it's something major. It's a divorce, an illness, where you just say, I got to bring my puzzle piece in, and I have to do it, or I can't breathe. So I'm going to sit back and just let you talk.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jan. So I'm Donalee Gastreich. I'm residing in the Midwest. I live in the state of Missouri. It goes by the name of the Show Me State. So I have a little bit of a need to validate what's going on in my life. And I think that's what's led me on the journeys I've been on, to validate spirituality, to validate that there's more than this human experience, to finding my way through A Course in Miracles, to all of the different means and measures, which I call finding my way home. That I feel like we're all on a journey to find our way back home to our true essence, our very true nature, that authentic self within that is a spiritual being here having a human experience. But by no means am I to, eliminate the humanness. I'm to weave it into my spiritualness and just keep weaving those threads together continually. And that's been my journey. That's been my journey. I love the spiritual aspect. I connect deeply to it. I feel it. I sense it. I want to spend time in just that stillness and silence and the woo of things and letting life transform right before my eyes. And yet I know I'm really here to ground it and to permeate it. And that's been my journey. And you're right. For some of us, we're often pulled by our pain before we're lifted and directed by a vision. And that was my journey. In 2007, I was heavily invested in the stock market in a equity called Crocs, CROX. It's the rubber shoes. They had IPO'd that year, and I followed their IPO. And I had a dear friend who taught me how to trade stocks and watch the way the equity traded and behaved and learned from it to invest at the right time. And lo and behold, I invested at all the right times, and my 401k, my rollover account, and my personal account all were now heavily invested in Crocs. We fast forward to October 2007, when that company came forward to report earnings, and the market didn't like what they were saying. I certainly couldn't hear the bad news, but the stock was just plummeting after hours. And I had no after hours trading. So I lived in hopium that the next morning this equity would come back to life. And it didn't. And I went around telling other people before the credit crisis, get out of the market. We're going down. We are going to crumble. I had the insight of what was coming, first and foremost by my own personal investment. But as I sat in that energy, it was even deeper. But lo and behold, I didn't know what I was doing to my body spiritually. That just the story of seeing my finances crumble caused me to step into a back injury, a low back injury, where I had 3 back surgeries, followed up by a grand mal seizure, a complete reset. And this all went on over late 2008 into 2009, leaving me so broken and so damaged and so needing help. And I knew I wasn't getting it from the medical field. Every time I would reach out to them, they'd want to write me a new prescription. And I just wanted to know how to get off all these prescriptions and how to get my health back. And I realized I had to start this journey all over again with spirit, letting spirit guide me. And that's what brought me to A Course in Miracles. I had to unlearn all of the stories the doctor told me. You forever live in back pain. You'll be back in a year for a fusion. You have 3 vertebrae, bone on bone. There's no disc material supporting them. And I couldn't get those stories out of my head. They weren't even my stories. And yet they were playing like a program on repeat in my mind. And it really took me that one day of really saying, what new story can I come up with? And when you're in pain, it's hard to have a good story. It really is. It's hard to see the light, to get through the darkness and the dense energy to even craft a good story. But I did believe that even though I couldn't see the results of getting better and better, I held on to a belief of what if? What if every day in every way I am beneath the seams, beneath the skin, cellularly, right? Energetically, mentally and emotionally, I'm getting better and better and better and better every day. And I knew that there was some truth to that. So I wrote it out on a Word document as big and bold as I could, printed it out 10 times, and I put it in every room of my house, some rooms twice. And I made a mission that every day when I passed that sign, I'd pause and I'd make it real for me. So what I was really doing was crafting new neural pathways. We talk about neuroplasticity, and this is me having to validate, show me how it really works. So I believe there's a part of us that when we fully engage in something with our spiritual intelligence, our mental intelligence, our intellect, our emotional intelligence, and our physical body intelligence, that our results are quantified. We take quantum leaps forward. We 10x our results. And that was my intention, that I knew I was creating new neural pathways, and I was going to frequent that neural pathway like a superhighway. And I was going to broaden it and widen it and frequent it often so that it could replace any of the old patterns and neural pathways that were keeping me stuck. And that was the beginning of my journey. And I knew at that point, big things were happening, that the second chapter of my life was about giving back to the world. And it was about empowering others with the gifts and truth that had empowered me to heal my body. Did I grow disc material? I don't need an x-ray to prove it. I'm pain-free. I'm fully mobile. My life has shifted and changed physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. but it hasn't come with such ease. We're in a human experience, and my humanness comes forth all the time to want to say, I need to know the full picture. And I keep having to pull myself back and reel myself back, saying, no, I don't. I just need to trust.
Yes.
I just need to trust and take the first step. And when I take the first step, it's as if I have little lamp lights on my feet,
Yes.
and I'm only shown this is the trusting journey. This is me building that deeper relationship with spirit and inviting it in to really be the guiding light in my life. And what I realize is, I was here in motherhood, right? My journey through motherhood was that um, my creator, God, this grand overall design of this universe and how things orchestrate, wouldn't have gifted me this beautiful miracle of a baby without the inner wisdom and guidance to tend to it properly. So I always tuned in. And then at the same time, as a mother, I went into sales. And again, as in the 80s, a woman in sales was not like protocol. It wasn't accepted. In fact, the employer I worked for didn't believe in female sales reps. I had to leave there to get the job in sales. And then most companies wanted a bachelor's degree, and I didn't have that. So how did I land that job in sales? Right? I believed that the powers that put that position in front of me would guide me every step of the way. And my boss wanted me to teach the other sales reps to do what I was doing because I was working part-time hours, making straight commission, not even a salary with my commission, and making sales rep of the month after month after month. And I thought I can't be sales manager and I can't train others. This isn't me doing this. This is me getting out of my way and inviting spirit in to hear the client, to listen to what they need and serve their needs. Right? And how do you teach that? How do you teach? This was me in the my mid 20s, right? Realizing I can't teach them how to turn into God and a power bigger than them and tell them that this is my magic of how I make sales rep of the month, right? It's not what my boss wanted to hear. Let's say that. But he does want to hear it now. I've reached out to him. He's been one of the first people I reached out to, and he's eager. And I think we all are eager now.
People are softening, and they're softening for the same reason that you mentioned. They hope that if they did the right things and made the right calls, but society is not meeting them. It's
Yes.
not honoring and respecting them in reciprocity in any of the ways, politically, economically. I mean, young people can't even buy a house. Severe disappointment. So you had that deep fall,
Mm.
your health issue precipitated by the stock market and the disappointment and frustration. And I know, as the healing work that I do, our physical issues begin in the etheric. And
Yes.
you were hanging your hat in a dissolving, kind of wonky paradigm that's not moving forward. So you fell into that for a bit, and what got you out was spirit. And every day, one step at a time, and spirit never fails. It's
Right.
the only thing you can put your trust in. So I know that there's people listening to this saying, should I leave my regular job? I'm not feeling good. Should I? How about this relationship? And they're just not alive. But as you say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because we don't want to start over. So you took your gifts and your skills, acumen as a businesswoman, and now what was the bridge or the messaging that said, Hey, sister, you need to write a book about spirituality in business because it's what you were doing. You had that formula
Yeah.
moving through you.
Um, I had a lot of growth to do in my own journey there. So at the same time that I was going through the 3 back surgeries and the grand mal seizure, I started Complete Solutions in September of 2008. Not by my desire to be a business owner, but the company I was working for was showing signs of financial difficulty, and my clients were my family. They were like my tribe that I protected, right? And I was that mama bear looking to protect them at all costs. And some of my clients had multiple locations where I stored their goods, their printed material, invoices, work orders, envelopes, and I'd send what each location needed when they needed it. So I warehoused all these paid for goods for them. And I knew when the bank came and took over a business, they just locked the door. They didn't care what you owned, what you didn't own. Everything was lost. And out of love and protection for my clients, so I thought this was really spirit saying, we've nudged you numerous times to start this business. Like, I didn't even know the name of my business, right? Like, how did I come up with Complete Solutions? This was trusting in something bigger. So during the credit crisis, who starts a new business, especially when they're going through 3 back surgeries and a grand mal seizure, and does this with trust, right? So Complete Solutions was formed then. And I knew everything I was learning in my own journey was what I was bringing forth. But I didn't know how at that point. I didn't have a clear picture. It was really late in 2019. Something drew me to human design, and I found out I was a reflector. And that answered so many questions for me. At the same time, our local mayor, who had just been elected into position, reached out to me to fill an empty seat in city council. And at that point, I'm saying, I've never in all my life thought I'd be stepping into politics in any way, shape, or form. But I also knew that as a reflector, I had the gift. I had an innate knowing, an ability to read the pulse of the community. That even prior to that, when a new organization would call me in, and I'd always ask them for a tour of their organization. And there was always rooms they didn't want to show you, like the storeroom, the storage room, right? Where it was a mess. They hadn't organized it. They weren't, as clean or clutter free as they wanted to be in. And I always said, let me see all of it. And I always had a prescription. Like, it was almost as if downloads would come in overnight. I'd sleep on it a day or two, and I'd always have ideas and suggestions to offer them as feedback. And every time they would look for ways to honor me the next time I came in, with a little mini party, a little celebration, a cake, bagels, whatever it was for that appropriate time or day or hour that I would be visiting. And I could see that these gifts and talents weren't being used to their fullest capacity. So it was through this journey, and I think my biggest journey was realizing, how do I bring the 3-letter word into business? God. I must have spent a year trying to find my way around that one. I created an acronym, G.O.D. God, grand overall design. It's the grand overall design of all of life. It's this one power, this one presence. God is just a simplified version and name that we call this one power, this one presence. And then as I found that, I realized it all just crumbled and dissolved. That was never even an issue. That was my issue. That was my fear. That was my, right? Like, so I feel like, the journey from 2009 to 2019 was really me letting go of and dissolving my own fears. How do you talk about love in corporate America? They're all business. They don't want to talk love and woo and things like that. And yet, if you're not coming from love, you're coming from fear or some aspect of fear. And if you're coming from some aspect of fear, you're dividing yourselves. And we see it in businesses today. We're trying to teach diversity, equity, and inclusion from the outside in. And the people don't even have awareness to see their own inner bias, that they have blocks to one another. And I realized how dysfunctional everything had gotten. And the bigger picture just kept expanding for me. As I walked through city council, I got to see what it felt like to be in a community of peers where you were valued, respected. The mayor, the chief of police, chief of fire answered my phone calls on the first ring. I had a direct line of connection and respect to other city council members and to my voice, to my message, to everything that was being shown. And it was the shortest job of my life and one I never applied for or resigned from. I was there all of 6 months. But
But
it
you
is,
learned about power, and you
yes,
learned how it felt to be honored and received fully. In our society, it's transactional, and they probably wanted your respect, and you're uh, referencing them when they had a need. But that was a whole new territory for you that empowered you to move into an expert and master and spokesperson. Now,
yes,
I wanted to back up a tiny bit. When I say God, people will say, even though I'm an ordained minister, I feel their pushback, and I'm sure you're an empath as a reflector of like, who are you to speak of God? God belongs to the bastion of the Bible and, revered priests or whatever. And so in my neck of the woods, energy workers, we use the word source. It's
yes,
generic, there's no pushback because there's no history, and it makes people thoughtful. Well, source is it is the flow of everything I need and want. Again, personal comfort zone. So I've used that and I haven't noticed. People get it kind of softly, but there's no pushback. If I can't say God or Jesus, one of the greatest teachers, or Buddha, or anybody, without feeling a little bristling going on, I think spirituality, as you said, your ex-boss is because they're saying, what's happening, that they are ready to acknowledge there might be a spiritual aspect to things. Okay, back to you.
yes. And you're spot on. Everything comes from source, right? It's a one power, one presence. It's an energy. It's consciousness, right? And when we really get there, we lose all need to have to validate it or make sense of it. We become one with it, right? We are it, and we sense it, we feel it. And you're right, spirituality, I feel like you can't have gone through the last 3 years that the world has all experienced together. Like, talk about gifts, right? I mean, as much as we want to curse what we've been through, there's a beauty and a gift in it, right? And I think that's what I started seeing over 2020. And you're spot on. I truly needed that rise in being in and of value and service, because I did play small, right? I feel like we have a self with a little s, and we have a self with a big S. And we decide, no one decides for us which ownership we take, right? And it's whichever one we're ready for. If we're ready for that big S, we're ready to get out of our own way, and we're ready to let spirit move through us. And there is no heavy lifting anymore.
Now, do you feel your book has been your step into your big ass?
Oh
Tell us
my
about your
goodness.
book. I love it.
Yeah.
experiences you have in your book?
So Spirit wrote the book. I didn't write the book, right? It has been my greatest relearning of coming back home to let Spirit guide me every step of the way, and modeling and practicing what that looks like, and getting out of my own way, and noticing my humanness and loving that part of me, but hugging her, nurturing her, and saying, come on, let's just get back in flow, right? Because the guidance is there, the direction is there. And if the pauses are necessary, and not noticing what I think I need to be noticing, then I need to erase my slate and stop thinking I got it figured out. Because every day in every way, I'm given my daily bread, so to speak, right? And that daily bread is the right people, the right connections, the right interactions, the right resources. And my job is to be grateful for them. My job is to be open to receive them. And that's been my book. So it was late in 2021. I was guided to be on this podcast of somebody's, and I was listening in, and Patrick Snow was on there, and he was being interviewed by someone, and he offered the first 10 callers that registered a call with him a 1-hour consultation. And I said, I'm in. And I said, yes. I showed up. I heard the offer. I took the invite. I embraced it. And he got on a call with me, and he said, tell me a little bit about you. And I must have gotten 3 or 4 sentences into my journey. And he goes, oh my gosh, you've got a book in you. The name of it is Bringing Spirituality into Business. It's a guide to know yourself, grow yourself, live life empowered. And it's actually going to be the blueprint for people to discover and implement their soul's mission and purpose in life. We could have hung up right then and there, girlfriend. I knew he was spot on. It was God speaking through him to me at that moment.
I'm
It
getting
resonated.
big chills with this. I'm getting big chills.
Yeah, it resonated all the way down to the tips of my toes, through the tips of my fingers and the crown of my head, and every cell in my body and being was vibrating, saying and screaming, yes, yes, yes. And I said, okay, you got me. I'm sold. I agree. I know that. I know that with the validity now. Like there's no denying it. What's the next step? And he said, you need to pour forth all your topics and just throw them out on a big sheet of paper, and then start putting them in organizational flow as to chapters of how the book's going to flow through you. And then we'll talk again afterwards. And at that point, I knew I needed a book coach, but my book coach couldn't be Patrick Snow. It was Spirit. And that if I enrolled a different book coach, I was dissing the whole purpose in me writing this book. And I'm not here to diss or reject or refuse. I'm here to align and be in flow. So I couldn't wait to get started. December was Christmas and holidays, and I'm a Sagittarius, so I have a December birthday. I have a nephew that has one. I have girlfriends that have it. So it was all celebration and the holidays with Christmas, and getting those chapters set up, and then letting energy flow into them. But January, I knew I was going to be making a date with the local bookstore, the local coffee shop, that I would write early in the morning, first thing. And that I would get out of my own way, and I would just open up to let Spirit start crafting the messages through me. And I wouldn't stop and have to go back and reread and correct. I would just write. I would just write. And I did that. And it was, I want to say it was so much fun. Like I literally looked forward to those mornings I head off to a coffee shop. I looked so forward to just writing and letting that energy flow and being in alignment and feeling fulfilled and resourced and provided for, right? And wow. And then the next steps got a little scary, right? What's it look like now to market it and get an editor, and right? I mean, Obviously, I have to have it edited. It's a professional book. I need it to be in businesses and be able to be read properly. And just the right editor showed up, just the right everything showed up. And then along the way, while my book is in the editing stages and phases, I get an invitation to be part of an anthology, to write a free chapter. Normally, when you're invited into an anthology, you have to pay a couple $1,000s to be part of that anthology. My invitation was a free offer, and the book was called Rising with Resilience. So I got to craft a free chapter in Rising with Resilience. That book made #1 bestseller internationally. I got to watch the whole marketing process unfold before my eyes. Talk about gratitude. Like, I am just filled with gratitude. When we sit in that energy of gratitude, I can't tell you how being filled with gratitude brings more things to be grateful for. I promise every listener that if you could practice one thing, that is gratitude, and practice it all day long. Don't wait to save it for the end of your day. Be in gratitude as these little synchronistic moments show up for you, because spirit is always delivering to us. Prosperity and abundance are all around us always. And
I bet you have a lot of that instilled in the processes in your book. Do you have your book handy? You can show it to us?
yes, well, actually, I have the proof copy in front of me. If,
Oh gosh, it's that hot off the press.
actually, I brought a copy with me to a workshop that I went to this morning, and it was a networking event, and I left it in my car so that I would always have it there for every networking event
Oh,
and
I get
everything I
that.
went to. Um, let me see if I have one. This one has the whole spirituality blocked out on it, so it's like it's got proof copy written all through here, so it's not a sellable copy. But the background behind me on the bookshelf is a copy of it. It truly is a game changer for business. It's intended for business executives to put this book in the hands of every individual, to really invest in their people at a whole new level and in a whole new way. As they do put the book in the hands of every individual, I invite them to convene weekly to go through what I call a book club. If you've ever been through a book club, my first one was with a girlfriend of mine who took me through A Purpose Driven Life by Rick Warren. What a great first book club, right? But I also thought I was gonna like unleash and unpack my whole purpose in life from reading that book. And I didn't, but it opened me up to seeing greater purposes in my life, right? And that oftentimes we don't have like one main big purpose, but many tinier messages and purposes that we deliver through life. And that life can be filled with many chapters. For me, there were two big chapters. The first one was motherhood and all that brought me. And truly speaking, anything that you're doing that brings you closer to spirit is a big purpose for you, right? Motherhood brought me closer to spirit. My position in sales brought me closer to spirit. Writing this book has brought me closer to spirit, right? And to me, we're here to be in that intimate relationship with spirit.
So when an executive puts this in the hands of his employees, when I have done vibrational sound work with the different hierarchies within one institution, I definitely try to bring everybody to the same playing field so that everyone is learning and growing without someone being in charge. And we take the labels out at that point so that everyone is honored and can grow. Because let's face it, we're looking at a future of roundtable discussions and gifts and honoring where the purpose or the goal is the boss.
Yeah.
Is the boss. So how do you manage taking away that hierarchy that's so natural?
So the first thing I do when I work with an organization is I invite their leaders into what I call a facilitator program. It's a 4-week program to gear them to be the facilitators. And the very first step in that is letting go of the old mindset of what it meant to be a leader and be bigger or bolder or better than your people, that you're equals and that you're learning from them. And until you can model that and show that to them, that we're here to grow and learn from one another. And until you can, I call it having those courageous conversations, right? Where we own our own shit and we are open and vulnerable enough to share it in a loving and compassionate way. That's our true growth. That's true leadership. That's the true potential to empower others. And that's what really empowers you. And that's a hard one to get. It really is.
It's hard for people in charge to want to be seen as fallible, is that the word, or vulnerable,
Yeah.
and to share their stuff because then it becomes social chit chat. So I'm sure that you build in confidentiality
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
because
Absolutely. And here's where I feel like the center section of my book. My book is sort of sectioned off into 3 sections. First section's educate. And it talks about terms and what is spirituality, and it's not religion, right? So we get that out of the way right away. And it brings in awareness. And I talk about a 3-point process, and I call it the ABCs. It's 1 skill, 1 practice, and 1 process. That 1 skill, in the beginning, I call it awareness, but it's only a skill because you haven't learned to practice it. You haven't mastered it yet. Awareness is actually a field that you step into. It's the present moment. It's where you come to this present moment without your past agenda, without your future expectations, wholly anew and innocent to learn what this moment has to show you. Which brings us to the practice, which is the B, and it's who are you being? And in this being part, I had a lot of my own history to pull from because it's important we bring all of us to the party. And the party is every engagement, every interaction, every, step out into our humanness in any role that we're playing, any conversation we're having when we go to work. Well, when I went in to the office as a woman in sales in the 80s, you bet your bottom dollar I didn't bring my emotional intelligence with me because I didn't want to shed a tear and appear weak amongst the guys. I had to tough it up. But I also didn't bring my spiritual intelligence into the office. The minute I got in my car to drive to go see a client and go on a sales call, that's when I brought my spiritual intelligence in. There was no radio. It was me connecting to that higher power now to prep for my call. But I didn't bring it into the office with me. So that's what I really realized. I saw that when I walked through city council and government, that we have agendas. We have these inner biases we can't even see we have. We're lacking awareness. We're not bringing all of us to the party. We don't even have full comprehension of these 4 intelligence systems that we actually have access to. We have a mental intelligence and we think it's to go get all these college degrees, and we're misusing it. It's our imagination. It's where we have the power to bring forth so many other things as well. It's not just memory, logic, and intellect. It's so much more. But we have an emotional intelligence, and it's actually a GPS and a guidance if we listen and we're open to it.
it's
So,
actually the feminine. The
Yes.
spiritual is the feminine, the masculine is the mind, traditionally,
Yes. And
energetic terms.
in both those chapters, I mention a little bit about what we call sacred masculine and sacred feminine, and wounded masculine and wounded feminine, because those two topics could be an entire book.
Absolutely, archetypes. I have
Yes.
a question for you. This has been on the tip of my tongue, and I'm working with other women in leadership positions and observing the bastions of power, the sitting at the round tables, often behind closed doors, and they just feel frozen because they're so used to keeping all their marbles in the pocket and guiding and manipulating and seeing who's in charge and elbowing each other. And how do we bring a new energy of facilitating, again, decision making that has a spiritual good for all, harm to none, where everyone says, I give and I release my own self interest? And that's going to take something like your book, changing the patterns, dissolving the archetypes, and people embodying it. But that could take a couple decades or even a generation.
Yeah.
So how can we now? Because I often hear, for instance, in climate change, many people sitting at the table have answers, but there's no congealing of an overall beneficial plan and funding. It's all stalemated.
So I believe, and this is the guidance I've been given, is that the sole purpose in the book is to bring people together to work together on themselves for 29 weeks. That's 7 months together of really doing this inner work. And as you know, the energies coming down onto Earth are coming down at speeds and velocities we've never seen before. The veil's thinning. We're shifting more quickly, right? We also know that when two or more come together with the same intention, that the energy's expanded, right? I truly believe that with the right facilitators working with these organizations, they're going to get it at such a new level, such a new
And
level.
where will these facilitators come from? Can you start a training program?
Yes.
Uh,
Yes. So
I'm
that so I have different arms of this book. One is just the book going out to organizations, right? To individuals. A game changer for businesses, self-empowerment tool for individuals. They can join my book club, and I'm inviting anyone who's a early adapter to the book to join my book club for free. So all of August and into September, anybody who buys the book is invited into my book club for zero cost. I want to say zero cost, but I'm still working with my IT people and how to set up that payment processing to accept a zero payment. And I've got it down to $1 fee. So bear
good
with
enough.
because I'm meeting with my IT guy on Monday to see if he can help me with that. So I'm still working through a few of the glitches, but all of this is unfolding. At the same time, I have Spirit has gifted me with the right people coming in who are coaches, who are human design experts, astrologers, healers in different modalities and different, maybe it's emotion code, maybe it's this, who want to be deliverers of hosts of these book clubs as well. So they're the early adopters coming in to be walked through this program at zero cost to help launch these organizations to new levels. I'm no longer doing one-on-one coaching,
Yes.
but these facilitators will be. So they'll be able to help some people with deeper work that needs the special loving embrace, right? That I'm not called to do anymore, right? There's a part of me too that, when you let go of something you loved, it feels like you're cutting off your left hand, right? And there's a part of me in that humanness that was like, you got this. You're here to illumine others. You're here for a bigger message now. I'm here to shine the light on all these other coaches and guides and healers and let them step forward and shine their magic.
I see that you have completed and brought your puzzle piece, and now you can just be the spokesperson for that and shine that light. Your brilliance assures a bright future. I'm so happy that we spent this time today, and I'd like to share with my community two things. Number one, how do they get their book and contact you? And as you say it, I will put it right in. I'll edit this and I'll put it right in. And secondly, what do you need from other women or other people now? What would you like? What would you like to see
Mm.
unfold?
Yeah, great question. So, first of all, if we're talking to audiences outside the US, Amazon's your best source for the book. Okay. If you're in the US and you'd like the book and a companion workbook, reach out to me and I'll get them to you. For the book club, right now, the passcode that I have offering it out at that $1 fee is with love. So enter coupon code with love, all lowercase, one word, no spaces, with love. And that will get you in a book club with me for the next 29 weeks. And it'll start mid-September. So you've got time. Don't rush, don't sweat about it. You can even read through the book and then come back and start the book club with us. Every time you read through the book, you're going to pick up new pieces for you. It's written in a way that you know this as well, Jan, that we can listen to the same message a year later and pick up things we didn't hear the first time around.
Yes.
That's this book as well. These coaches, these healers, these experts in their field have had my book for a month now, and they're all saying the same thing. I know this, and it's growing me in big ways. Just reading the book will grow you. I promise you, just reading the book will grow you, right? So what am I looking for? I would have to say it's more facilitators. It's more facilitators. If you're already doing this work and you feel a need or feel a calling in your heart to maybe commit an hour a week for 29 weeks to guiding others through this work, and at the same time growing your business and your own work that you do, this is a great opportunity for you to do that.
So here we have, we're finishing up our interview with Donalee Gastreich, and she has dropped a beautiful golden frequency of energy into the world to shift the way we do business, guided by spirituality, and has shared her personal story. And we share her personal story so other people are aware of this puzzle piece that is now available and they can share that. But maybe even more importantly, people watching this will say, what is my puzzle piece? And no matter where you are in your journey, maybe you can walk around that little deep drop of illness or calamity by responding to those messages into spirit, as Donalee has so beautifully done. This interview will be up on the YouTube. Jan Jorgensen, Be the Light and Soar. And I couldn't help but notice, Donalee, how many times your languaging was so similar to mine. That makes me realize we are circuit boards bringing new wording, ideation, and visions for a tired world to reattune to a higher order. So I'm going to hand it back to you for the closing statements, my dear, and namaste for being here with my community today.
I just want to be of the utmost in gratitude for this invitation, first and foremost, and able to share this message, right? And then for my own gifts and journeys of being open to allowing them to surface and unpack. And each one of us, our calling is ourself, is to grow ourselves. In growing ourselves, we become the gift for the world. So stop thinking you've got this big thing to give to the world. Just grow you. Just focus on you. Just align your light with the light that's coming in for you to see and illumine to the world. And that is your gift and contribution.
And so it is. Namaste. Okay, so we're going to. Hello friends, I'm Jan Jorgensen here at the YouTube channel, Jan Jorgensen Be the Light and Soar. And every month I will choose a person who I think is exuding truth, is a visionary, and holding a high level of consciousness to assist us on our pathway to new outcomes for Earth. So please do join us, and who knows, maybe I'll be interviewing you next.